Hi everyone, my name is Krista Clary. I'm a safety advisor with the Newfoundland Labrador Construction Safety Association. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the operation of an aerial work platform and different things that we can do to prevent injuries or fatalities while operating this piece of equipment. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the different types of aerial work platforms and what kind of situations that we would use each individual one for. The other thing that we're going to be talking about is that we have identified the major hazards associated with working from an aerial work platform and how we can prevent those from happening. So the major hazards being falls, tip overs, contact with electricity, being trapped, and failure to follow instruction guidelines. Hopefully by putting these controls in place, we will prevent this hazard from occurring. So the different types of aerial work platforms can include, but it's not limited to, scissor lifts, articulating boom lifts, telescopic boom lifts, and cherry pickers. These are some of the more common ones that we do see in workplaces. However, that's not an all-inclusive list. Depending on the situation that the company is in or the particular worker, if they need to go straight up and down or if they need to access a difficult area or anything like that, they may need to consider using a different type of aerial work platform. They all raise the worker up to work at heights, but they all have different uses and different situations that are more favorable than others. So the first hazard we're going to be talking about is falls, so falling out of an aerial work platform. So how we can prevent that from happening is the first thing we can do is to make sure it is a legislative requirement that anyone who is operating or on an aerial work platform has fall protection training. This would give the operators and workers the information and about how to work safely while working at heights. It discusses how to don a harness properly, inspect the harness, and any other information about working at heights. The other thing that workers can do is make sure that they actually use the lanyard and the harness. So making sure that that system is connected together, the harness is put on the worker and it's put on properly and fitted properly as per the manufacturer's instructions. The lanyard is inspected and it's connected to the harness, and then that is also connected to the anchor point. So the anchor point is within the aerial work platform, and it is in the area where the manufacturer has identified that the worker can tie off to, and that is going to withstand the force in the event that a worker does fall. Another thing that workers can do is to make sure that they're not using anything to gain additional height. So this would include not standing on any guardrails, any boxes, ladders, or anything like that. If they do need to gain additional height, they're required to either raise the lift. If the lift cannot be raised any further, if it's fully maxed out, then they need to consider a different type of lift. So maybe an articulating boom or a lift that has a higher capacity to go. Then we have the prevention of tip overs. So tip overs can occur. They often occur, when aerial work platforms are being driven improperly. So one of the things that we can consider is never driving an aerial work platform when it is elevated. So if we need to move an aerial work platform from one location to another, we're required to lower the lift and then drive it to the new location and then raise it at that point. So it's important to make sure that we are lowering it in order to drive it. When it is in a raised position, it's less stable. So therefore, anytime we drive it, a small minor bump in the road can seem very much bigger when it is in a raised position and traveling. We are allowed to make small minor adjustments and in a raised position, but it is intended that would be lowered and then moved to a new location. We're also going to make sure that we're going to place the aerial work platform on firm level ground, and this will just help it prevent it from being tipped over or anything like that. So then we have contact with electricity. So one of the first things we can do is be aware of overhead power lines. So we should be stopping, looking up, looking around, and determine if there is any overhead power lines that could get in our way, not just where the aerial work platform is located, but also in the path that we need to travel to the location, as well as at the location itself where we need to conduct the work. We are going to maintain a distance of 5.5 meters. So this is a legislative requirement that we maintain 5.5 meters or 18 feet from a power line. If we need to get closer, then we have different things that we need to consider. So one of the first things we can do is, can we de-energize it? Or maybe we could ground the wires. This would be in conjunction with the utility company. We would certainly contact them and they would determine the best approach if it's possible to de-energize the lines, ground the wires, or anything like that. If we need to work closer and that is not possible, we're going to get a permit from the utility company. So we would contact the power utility company and they would determine if we could in fact safely move closer or within that 5.5 meters or 18 feet. This will be clearly identified on the utility company's permit. We're also going to consider some of the weather conditions, so not only at the beginning of the day, but the whole time that we are working from an aerial work platform. So some of the major ones consider is the wind, right? In big windstorms or in windy areas, there's the potential for the aerial work platform to come in closer contact with energized wires. So the swaying of the wires within the wind could cause or decrease that distance that the aerial work platform was originally from. Also, rain and fog make weather conditions more susceptible to coming in contact with electricity. Rain and fog, because of the moisture in the air, it increases the ability for the electricity to jump or arc to the aerial work platform. As well, fog and rain make it difficult to see, and darkness make it difficult to see the overhead power lines as well. So another hazard that we can be exposed to is being trapped between the lift and an object. So the first thing we should be doing is to assess any overhead hazards of where we are working. And depending on the potential overhead hazards, we should be developing and implementing effective controls. So for example, this could be an industrial fan or anything like that that would require effective controls. So either de-energizing it or putting guards in place or different things like that. We could also determine a safe distance from the hazard. So maybe we don't need to work directly underneath it, but maybe we can work in a safe distance away from it. And no workers should be working underneath or in close proximity to the to the aerial work platform. So this would, if the aerial work platform did tip over or anything dropped, then a worker wouldn't be trapped between the lift and the object. And the last hazard is failing to follow instruction guidelines. So this is where workers really come into play. And this is really important, as we would make sure that all workers have been provided appropriate training. So not only making sure that they have the training that they have completed and someone has certified them, but make sure that they are also competent in their job. So making sure testing their ability and making sure that they know how to operate it, inspect it, and different things like that, especially making sure that it is applicable to the specific piece of equipment that they could be using. They're also going to make sure that they're following the manufacturer's instructions. Different manufacturers are going to have different instructions and different information within that manual, and we need to make sure that we know where that is and that it is readily available to us and that it is reviewed prior to operating the aerial work platform. We're also going to have developed safe work practices, hazard assessments, and different things like that before we operate the aerial work platform, and make sure that they are regularly reviewed with all the workers. So in conclusion, we talked about the different types of aerial work platforms and how one aerial work platform does not fit for every situation. So we need to consider changing the type of aerial work platform depending on the location that we need to access. The other thing that we talked about is the different hazards and the prevention measures that can be taken to hopefully prevent an incident from occurring. Prevention is key. We need to develop these things before we are working and making sure that they are effective. So keep checking back and making sure that people do have the training and that they are using the equipment and things like that. Unfortunately, a slight error in judgment can lead to a fatality. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you learned about how to operate an aerial work platform safely. Thank you and have a great day.